I don't want this to happen.
I know. And I'm not expecting anything from you. I don't want you to feel trapped. You can be as involved as you want. Either way, I'm good.
All right, so I gotta ask. One of the characters in Insecure was a character who came seemingly out of nowhere. She befriended Issa, and unbeknownst to her, she was dating Lawrence. And it became very awkward because, she's a business contact and she was connecting Issa with all of these, business people and getting everything ready for the block party. And obviously, I'm talking about Condola. And so Condola goes on, and, Condola is an interesting figure as far as what people thought, because there's a lot of people on social media that didn't particularly care for Condola. They never called her by her name on Twitter. So Maya, where do you stand on Condola?
I probably stand where most people stand in the fact that I did not like condolences. And here's the thing, like, let's be clear about conversation. She, it wasn't that, like, on social media, people didn't like her because of the dynamic, like basically like she took Lawrence, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't again, it goes back to what we talked about before. It wasn't a cheating thing. He did not cheat with this girl. He just so happened to meet this girl. They started liking each other, and then they fell into a relationship. And I say fell into a relationship because I think that both of them, it started out as like, oh, we're just dating or whatever. Then they had, like things in common. And here we are now into this relationship. What I did not like about Condola is this: when you befriended Issa, that was one thing. But then when y'all found out about the Lawrence thing, I don't know what everybody else, this is how I felt about Condola.
Okay.
You act like you were mature enough to handle the situation. Meaning like, okay, I'm friends with this girl who used to date this man that now I'm dating. When you knew the whole time that you were not mature enough to, and I don't think that she was immature, so maybe mature is the wrong word, but you weren't able to handle the situation. So now you look clowny because you befriended this girl when you knew that you couldn't handle it. You should have just been true to who you were and said, nah, I can't handle it. Of course, you know that Issa and Lawrence are going to have inside jokes. Of course, you know that Issa and Lawrence have a bond that you and him don't share.
Right.
They were together for 5 years. You're just been together for 5 minutes. Y'all have y'all inside things. They have their inside things. So I did not like that Condola befriended Issa when she knew that she couldn't handle the situation. Even as much as Issa is who she was, all over the place. She was even like, well, it is what it is. I guess she was looking at the situation like, well, because it ultimately boiled down to them having the business contact. And at that time, Issa was in need of her services. So when she left her hanging on the block party situation, it was a done bun for me. I was
forgot about that.
I was done with Condola. And so then when she got pregnant, it's nothing to root for because you had left the girl hanging when you should have just left the situation from the beginning. It just didn't. I don't want to say it didn't make sense because it's what women do. It's what women do. And maybe not even just women. I don't know how men move because I'm not a man. But when it comes down to women, you put yourself in these positions and you like, oh no, it's cool or whatever. when you know it's not cool. And if people are just true to who they are and
Right.
say, no, I'm not feeling this. I don't want to be a part of that. The world would just be a better place if you was just true to who you were. Stop thinking that you can handle things that you know that you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
Okay,
you
so
county.
so do you think she should have pulled back? Or, because remember, Issa was contemplating, and I think she talked to Molly about it. Molly didn't particularly care for, because I remember when they had the lunch and she was supposed to be with Molly, and then Condola shows up, and then Condola's trying to leave, and she's like, no, stay, blah, 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 blah. And Molly was like, wasn't even feeling it, because this was supposed to be a moment where, and this also speaks to the dysfunction that Molly and Issa were experiencing in season 3, which ultimately led up to their fight. But do you think, who was it incumbent upon to pull back? Should it have been Condola? Should it have been Issa?
I think it should have been both.
Okay.
I don't think that they should have gotten to quote unquote friendship, because they weren't friends, they were associates.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't have gotten into that space, period. Once they found out that they had this in common, and that thing being Lawrence, they should have both pulled back from the situation. I think that they both were I don't put the blame on either one. I put the blame on Condola for leaving Issa hanging when you were acting like it was cool. But in the beginning, they both should have pulled back. They both knew that they weren't comfortable with the situation.
Right.
They were both trying to play big girl when they wasn't big girls. You know what I mean? And so, and I respected Molly for saying, in that space, I respected Molly for saying, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Like, why are you befriending this girl? Like, what is it that you're trying to get out of the situation? Because you know your friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know that your friend is not built for what she get ready to get herself into.
Mm-hmm.
And you also know that your friend is still in love with this man. You know, and again, they were both trying to play big girl when it's like, y'all not built like that, neither you nor Condola.
Preach. That's a good point. You know what's funny, Maya? I saw so much so much disdain for Condola, and it mostly came from women. Fellas, you know, they found Condola to be attractive or whatever the case may be. But that's an awkward situation to be in, and I understand where most of the women that I saw on social media, where they had an issue with it and how it became problematic. Like you said, when she left her hanging at the block party, it was just like, okay. And I mean, like, Issa was awkward, and she was trying to figure out, because she didn't want to lose her, because obviously Condola had contacts and connects, and they were bonding. They weren't friends, because, you know, Kelly and Tiffany and, you know, Molly are your friends, but it was that, but that was a real situation. Like, I could see that playing out in real life. But like you said, if you're not man or woman enough to handle it, then, and you know, Lawrence has some culpability too, because he probably could have, you know, kind of fallen back, but you know, and then he got her pregnant. It was, and of course, I know he didn't mean to get her pregnant, but still, bruh.
Let me tell you something about the pregnant situation. This was also where the disdain came from with Condola, in my eyes.
Okay.
I don't know about anybody else, but in my eyes, I do not like people who say one thing and do another.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, and another thing is this, as a child, as a woman, my grandmother and my mother always said, you decide to have a baby, that's your baby. It's your baby. If this man walk out on you today, if he decides that he does not want to be a part of this baby's life, you grew that baby in your body, that's your baby. Mm-hmm. You don't have the luxury of walking away and saying, nah, I don't want to be a part of this, because that's your baby. So when you think about the decisions that you are about to make as far as having a baby, think about that, because that's your baby forever, right? Condola came into the situation and was like, well, I don't want to get rid of the baby. This is my baby. You could choose to have a part in this, or you could choose not to have a part in this.
Yes.
But then fast forward, you're mad at him because he half-assed in the part. You can't give somebody a a choice and then be mad at the choice that they make. So that
Facts.
was the part that got on my nerves with Condola. It ain't have nothing to do with Issa. It had everything to do with her. And we all do that. We all do it. You know, you say one thing and then you have expectations of another. And it goes back to you was trying to be a big girl because you thought that this man was going to make a decision that which you were blessed that he ultimately did make, right? He ultimately did become a part of his child's life. However, if he chose not to be a part of his child's life, then what? Now you got egg on your face when you knew from the beginning you wanted this life. You wanted him, you wanted the baby, you wanted the family, but you weren't true to who you were or what you wanted. And that was the part that got on my nerves about Condola. And that was why I had so much pain for her, because it's just like, girl, just be real. Just be real. You were in love with Lawrence more than you probably thought you were, more than you said that you were. And then when she got pregnant, I think this, much like a lot of women, you have this, fairy tale of what you think it's going to be, but then you trying to be like this person that's like, no, I can handle this on my own. It's on you. You can make the decisions that you want. And then when he didn't, it's like, how dare you not make this decision? Now you mad at this man? Come on, like, it's just unrealistic. And we all go through. And, Condola is no different than anybody else. She's no different than any other woman. But that was what got on my nerves about her.
She was public enemy number 3, 4, and 5. It was funny just to see, women in particular on social media attack her. And I think you eloquently explained it, how we got to that point, because, like you said, it's about the choices. She told Lawrence when she found out she was pregnant, she said, you can be as involved as you want to be. That ain't something you need to tell any man. I don't care who you are. Even the most coolest of guys will be on some, all right, then I'll holler, and they may or may not come back. But yeah, Condola was her character. And one last question before we get out of here. There was a scene in the final season where Condola is feeding Elijah, their son, and Lawrence comes in because the boy wasn't eating. Lawrence comes in, he gives him a spoon, and the boy starts eating again, and everybody's happy. And she looks at him in a certain way because, she had invited him in the house. He had put up a shelf and he's doing daddy things. He was like helping her fold clothes. And she looks at him and she says, "You're a really great father." Did you think at any point, of course, at this point, we don't know what's happening between Condola and Lawrence. Did you think that she said that because she genuinely meant it, or she was trying to get back in there with him?
I think that she came to her aha moment. I don't think that because of the way that the ending played out, not with Issa and Lawrence becoming together, but even when they were at that party and I think that at that moment that she said, "You're a really good father," she came to the realization that all he's going to be is a good father. You know what I mean? I think that she probably, when she let him in the door, she, much like any woman, right? They would be like, "Oh, okay, this is the moment where we can get back together." And you're looking at him and he's putting up the shelf and he's feeding the baby and y'all in the house and everything is all great and this, that, and the third. But I think that she came to her realization that all this is going to be is him being a good father. Putting the shelf up is just what he's doing for the family, me and Elijah, so that it could take something off of my table. But I think that was really like her aha moment. And the only reason why I say that is because when they were at that pool party, she didn't fight him on. It wasn't a thought in her mind to say, "Well, what about us? Well, what about us?"
Right.
Meaning her and him. It was just like, like, we get ready to go. And, because like she probably came to the realization, because every woman has that moment, whether you have a child or not with a man, every woman comes to that moment where you feel like this ain't gonna be nothing. Even when you're living in a fairy tale, even when you
Mm.
want something to be what it's not. Every woman comes to that moment where you're like, it ain't gonna work, it's not gonna be anything, it's, we're better off the way that we are. And I think that that's what happened with her. She had that aha moment.
Okay. Well, Maya, thanks again. We had to do this bonus episode because I would be remiss if we ended this conversation and we didn't talk about Issa versus Condolences, Condoleezza.
It's like,
I mean, I saw her name called just about anything that started with a C, Condor, Contemporary. They called her everything but Condola, but
right.
that's going to do it for us. Thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. For my co-host Maya, I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's.